Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Riv. Oh, we got all kinds of things to talk about.
We always have
Uh,
all kinds of things to talk about.
yeah, well, yeah, but I got to mention something that happened a little while ago we heard about, and I guess we didn't get time. Paulie cleaned out the homeless camps. We talked a little bit about it, but
Yep.
just want to remind everybody that's sensitive Paul. Remember, he cares about everybody. So he cleaned them out. And I know he said he's putting them in uh, some facilities and housing temporarily. But listen, the only time you get permanent housing is if you're an illegal. You can be a homeless vet, a homeless anything. And if you're an American, you get screwed.
Yep,
So,
that's true. Well, the
so
thing is,
what?
he was on 10 News conference with Gene Valicenti, and he said that because Gene Valicenti asked him about the homelessness, and he said that they visited 3 camps and they plan on removing them, and they're not on city property. Now, again, he's got to defend the city. Just like he said, the stabbings weren't the Fall River's problem because the guy wasn't from Fall River. Uh, this makes for an interesting time for sure, and it makes you look at this and say, what's going on? He said, we're not going to tell them when we're going to clean out their um, encampment, but we're going to do it. And we're going to send in my FAST team. I don't know what FAST stands for, but that's the team of social workers and resource people that are going to go out offering homelessness shelter beds. There are no shelter beds. They don't have enough because Paul closed Tomeo. He closed it. So I don't know where the shelter bed's going to come from unless we're going to do like Boston does and send them to Fall River. Maybe we should send them back to Boston. I don't know.
But you know that's what Paul does. He talks in circles and he lies. He's Paul, the pathological prevaricator.
Navigator.
He loves to talk. He just lies. He just lies and spins and everything. Oh yeah, well the guy wasn't from Fall River who did the stabbing. Is that in the FBI reporting stats that if somebody gets murdered in Fall River, we have to actually report the crime and wherever he was born? I
I
don't know.
don't
I
think
didn't
so.
think that was the way it went.
No,
Is
that's not the way
that
it
the
was.
way it
But
goes, CJ?
Paul did say that he has to take the hit on the statistics. So he did admit that statistically he has to take the hit. But
Well,
Paul,
yeah, but he doesn't like it. You know, that's the
right.
Fall River way. Let's blame everybody else. So I guess all the illegals who have murdered people, I guess the murder of Lake and Riley is not going to be reported in Georgia.
That's right.
He has to be reported in whatever country. I don't know whether he's Guatemalan or Venezuelan or whatever he was. They're going to have to report it in Venezuela
Right.
because Paulie doesn't want anything. Oh, it's not Fall River. Well, most of the people that are living in Fall River now that we're having problems with weren't born in Fall River. And we all know that. But while we're on telling lies and trying to spin things, and I know you got it, CJ, but I got it here.
Yep.
And what I did was I marked the votes on these things. You can see the little markies over
Yep.
there. I got some pens. I marked our great delegation. And we'll start in alphabetical order. Fiola, nay. Haddad, nay. Schmid, nay. Sylvia, nay. Now, this is House Floor 600, Amendment 698. And Allen supposedly has said he did not vote against this resolution. So I don't know. Are we going to have to call in the FBI or the BFI or the CIA or the NSA or who knows what else, or the FAST team or somebody to determine who voted for Allen? I
Well,
don't know because that's what it says. I'm
just
sorry.
so, just so you know, Alan, people had posted on Alan, one of Alan's social media posts that he voted no for veterans preference. He said, I would never vote no for anything for veterans. I'm a veteran.
But
Okay,
he
you would
did.
never do it? Try this. That's the list of the votes that Chip just showed you. And we're going to focus in on Alan Sylvia now. There it is. Schmidt, nay. Sylvia, nay. But Alan, and you said in your post, check my record. There, we've checked your record. So explain that. And by the way, Alan, after this vote, canceled his South Coast Neighborhood Association meeting. Now, I don't know why he did that. He didn't post it, but he's never canceled the meeting. And people who wanted to confront him, including veterans, at that meeting, said he canceled the meeting so he wouldn't have to face the repercussions. They're gonna get you at your next meeting, Alan. I'm pretty sure. So make good with what you can.
And where does that leave us now? You know, again, it's ironic. I was just watching Saturday night. They had an amazing, a really amazing show. Somebody told me to watch it. I tape it and I'll watch it later, like I do with most things. On Mark Levin's show, he did a story about the society and everything else, and he showed. But he began talking about what's happening on the college campuses and things like that. And he showed some video from the concentration camps in World War II, when General Eisenhower went there, and he showed the first concentration camp that the Americans liberated, Buchenwald. And my father was actually one of those combat engineers who liberated Buchenwald. I donated some pictures that he took there at the concentration camp when he liberated a camera from a Nazi officer and took pictures, and they're down in the National Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. But he was talking about how when people ignore the realities and don't get involved, and he talked about Nehemiah. But then the second segment of the show, they had Victor Davis Hanson, and I'm sure you know him, CJ. He's an eminent scholar and historian, and he's written a new book, and I'm going to order it today. I think it comes out tomorrow. It's called the end of everything, or something like that. The end of everything, and how wars annihilate basically societies. And I love history anyway, but it talks about how empires that lasted for far more than the United States. Yeah, you're right. The real criminals work in government, so that's true. But he talks about how Carthage, that lasted 800 years, was destroyed. He goes over some of the greatest empires in the history of the world, and how they were ultimately annihilated and wiped from the face of the earth. We all remember Rome, but not too many people remember Carthage. They eliminated everything about them, their history, their language, everything, and some other ones. So it seems like an amazingly interesting book, but the key was, what he said was, the way these societies were eliminated was because they just thought they were just untouchable. We will always be in power because we are Carthage, or we are the United States. And they never thought, they thought they were impervious to this, and they ignored it. They didn't participate, and what they really did was, which I found interesting, was they do what they do here. And he said, yeah, like people are doing in the United States now. They're moving to red states. And they're saying, okay, I'm not going to watch the Academy Awards and the politicization of this. I'm not going to watch these shows that are putting up propaganda. I'm not going to listen to propaganda news media. I'm just going to ignore them and live in my red state and be fine. He said, but that's what happened in these other cultures. They thought they could escape it. But the only way to not be destroyed is to become active, not move away and ignore everything, as Nehemiah said after the Holocaust. Because when they get to you, there's no one left to speak. The moral of this story is, get your ass out and vote. Rise up. Take your city back. Take your country back. Ignoring the problem, pretending it doesn't exist, moving to Florida, not going to help you. People have to become engaged in their government again. And everybody knows that, but very few people do it. See, the people who understand this, Teddy Roosevelt wrote a great piece on the destruction of the Roman Empire, where he said the reason the Roman Empire was destroyed was because the Romans stopped voting. They allowed the government to be controlled by government ticks and their friends. Sound familiar? 14,000 ticks controlling the vote for 55,000 people. And with that, CJ, back to you.
You know, what's interesting is the fact that right now there's a movement on to mobilize the states for a conference of states to, I wouldn't say secede from the union, but to remove the power from the federal government and give it back to the states so the states govern themselves. Now, I'm not sure if they really want to do that, because then they'll lose all that federal money for roads and stuff and for infrastructure. But, I mean, it's a good idea. That's, they said it when they founded this country. When your government fails to provide you with what you need, it's time to overthrow your government. Maybe that's what they're thinking of doing. It's not a bad idea, in my opinion. What about you, Chip? What do you think?
Well, the Constitution already provides that the states have autonomy in a lot of things, and they should
That's
exercise that. So we have to really get the Constitution. But it's funny, we know what they did in Buckhead down in Atlanta. They tried to secede from the city.
Right.
Because they pay 70% of the taxes and the place is overrun with crime, and now the criminals are getting into their rich enclave. And they haven't been successful as of yet, but there was a successful secession down in Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They went to the Supreme Court and they won. A section of Baton Rouge down there in Cajun country, St. George's, I believe, they seceded. They created their own community. It was a little different because incorporation down there, they hadn't incorporated, but they went to the Supreme Court and they won. Because you know what they said? Screw you. You people, that all you do is take our money. You don't do anything about the crime. We got a shitty educational, sound familiar? We got a shitty educational system. We're at the bottom of the barrel. And we're sick and tired of it. We want to run our own show. I don't know, can the Flint secede from Fall River?
It wouldn't be a bad idea.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. But we're saying this and we're kind of being satirical here. Because nobody's got that kind of money unless you hit the Powerball for like $1 billion. Because they'll tie you up in court forever because they control the rules. The Constitution doesn't matter anymore. The states already have the right to self-government in most of the things. It's in the Constitution. But they just say, screw the Constitution. Look at Biden. The Supreme Court of the United States said you can't forgive student debt. And he went, I don't give a shit what the state Supreme Court said. I don't care if I'm prohibited from doing that. by the Constitution, because the executive branch doesn't have the power to do that. He's doing it anyway.
Boy, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like Paulie, we know.
That's right.
And it's like, look what they're doing now. Look what they're doing to Trump. They're bringing up bullshit charges that they know will never stick. The statutes of limitations is gone. They were misdemeanors. They've elevated the felonies with federal. They're not under federal jurisdiction. Where's the Department of Justice? They should have stepped in and said, listen, you can't try this case. You don't have jurisdiction, federal jurisdiction. You're a local DA. Well, what did they do? They're going to try a guy in a place where 95% of the people voted against him. They got a judge whose daughter's made $100,000 representing Adam Schiff and all the rest of the Democrats, all of which is against the law. But they know that they're going to get away with it because they know ultimately they're going to lose, but they don't care if they win. They just want to tie a political opponent up in court and convict him of something that'll be overturned ultimately. This is not the way you run a democratic republic. I love it when they start running around, the Democrats run around with their hair on fire and say, we got to protect democracy. We got to protect democracy. And they're the ones who are destroying democracy, because this technically isn't a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. Because the reality is, if you had a pure democracy, it's anarchy. You can't run a government on a pure democracy, because then everybody is running around saying, I want this, I want that. Nothing ever gets solved. So it has to be a republic. So a constitutional republic, a democratic republic. It's so, but when you abuse that power, we're destroying our country, just like Carthage. And like I said, if you want to read a real good book, and I've read other things by Victor David Hansen. He is an amazing writer. He's an amazing scholar. And he's a historian of the highest order. Those books are interesting, because if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. But we see this all the time. Lawfare. As you said, Paul just ignores everything. Screw the law. Or if there's a law that we can bend, we'll bend it. Like, have your two people give you the authority to take over the retirement board. And Perrak said they didn't do it the right way. But he doesn't care. He got what he wanted so far, because that's not dead yet. But, city council is the appropriating authority. No, one budget, he just took it away from them on a technicality in law. But then if he has no law that he can manipulate, he ignores them. That's not the way this country was supposed. It was supposed to have equal justice under the law, at least to a degree. And the moral of the story is, we're seeing this country and this city unraveling around us, and he's on there telling everybody loves me. Look at 3 terms, everybody loves me. I don't know, I may be getting ready for a 4th term. I may become permanent mayor. I may be the Donald Trump. You can accuse me of being a dictator. I can be here forever. Everybody loves me. But he forgot to say that only like 15,000 people showed up to vote. Yeah.
There's a rumor that he's saying that he's going to be another Eddie Lambert.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
But he doesn't sing or dance.
Yeah, well, Eddie Lambert was a consummate politician. I mean, he could sing and dance, and he did do some good things. He didn't do anything. He destroyed the retirement system, and that's one thing. He will be another Eddie Lambert. He's already becoming another Eddie Lambert. Eddie Lambert was the guy who skimmed from the retirement system and tanked it from 02 to 12.
Right.
So that's what he's going to do. That's like Eddie Lambert, but he's no Eddie Lambert. Eddie Lambert was a bright guy, good politician too. I'll tell you what, Paulie, run for a fourth term. When the people get their tax bills, they'll be out to lynch you. So when they start seeing all the, and when they pay attention, when you can, you're just hoping you can keep 14 or 15,000 people coming to the polls. But I will make you a bet. If we get 18, 20,000, hopefully 25,000 people to the polls, you will get buried. You will get buried. And with that, CJ, back to you.
It's very interesting. No matter what you talk about, I mean, it's very interesting, and that's it. I've just been reminded about something. Last night, Steward Health Care filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, let's stop the rumors. They have filed for what's called debtor in possession, which means they're filing for bankruptcy to restructure their debt. Not to close their hospitals, not to lay off people, not to stop services. They're doing it to restructure their debt. And in turn, they will remain in possession so that they can continue providing services to the communities. And that will allow them to prep themselves for takeovers or sale to other healthcare corporations. Now, I've heard that Charlton, South Coast Health, would like to take over St. Anne's, which I think would be a big mistake. I think that would be a huge mistake because we would lose so much. We would lose so much in healthcare. I mean, you'd go from 4 to 6 hours to 10 to 14 hours wait times in the ER because there'll be one ER. You're going to be stuck with one cancer center. I firmly believe that South Coast would close them down. At the same time, I've heard that Lifespan, which owns Rhode Island Hospital, is showing an interest in acquiring some of Stewart's hospitals. Now, I'm kind of biased with that because I have privileges at Rhode Island Hospital. I still can be seen there. And I like Rhode Island Hospital. And to be honest, I like their trauma center more than I like South Coast at St. Luke's. So if you ever get into a trauma and you're able to tell the ambulance driver that you don't want to go to St. Luke's, do that. Tell them you want to go to Rhode Island Hospital. I just personally went through an experience with someone who went to St. Luke's, and it was the worst experience I've ever had. I complained so much to the hospital, and you know what they did? They gave me a blanket. They sent me a blanket in the mail to calm me down. And the blanket had South Coast embroidered all over it. That's where your dollars go to. But I will say something that came up. People have been complaining that Steward has been doing something we've spoken about a lot on this show. Things like balance billing. Well, they're charging a second fee on the same day of an appointment, and that fee is a billing fee. So once they bill for the doctor's office, Stewart then bills for the billing. So it's kind of odd, kind of weird. But the insurance companies have started saying they're not going to pay it. And when you get that bill from South Coast, because they don't list it as a billing fee, they had to do a lot of research to find out. When you get a bill that says you need to pay this, tell them balance billing is illegal in Massachusetts, and no, I'm not going to pay you to bill me. And don't worry about it because they're trying to make up money. Okay, if that's truly going on. So think about that. But you are not going to lose your hospital. The hospital's not going to close. They're just a debtor in possession, which means they're going to keep going. They're going to keep going until they get sold. And that's what that is all about. So please don't stop spreading any of the false rumors. Know what they're talking about. The State House News Service has written a very factual and very informative article I've read it twice now. The article in the Herald News is written by the State House News Service. That's why I give it some credibility. I don't give it credibility because it's in the Herald.
Thanks for that clarification. I know you worked over in Rhode Island, CJ, and they do have a very good reputation. They're affiliated with some, um, you know, really good teaching hospitals. I mean, a lot of people don't have much use for Harvard and Brown, and I'm one of them anymore for the undergrad programs because they're just producing radicals. But they are very well known for their medical schools, and most of the Rhode Island hospitals are affiliated with Brown, and most of the Boston hospitals, most of the physicians up there teach it. They're adjunct professors or something at Harvard or Brown. But they do have a very, very good reputation, and we are very fortunate to have Boston as close as it is, but Providence is even closer, and they have a very, very good reputation. And that's the key. The key is that you try to get the best health care you can, but it's a minefield again, but we get back to what we can do. We have to rise up, and I know there's a concentrated effort. You were talking about people getting together, and a lot of the independents in the country are beginning to form groups of independents because the independent voters now are outnumbering the Democrat and Republican voters. And I think it's long overdue because if you kind of have a functional brain, you realize that these parties end up making you abide by some things you don't agree with. And I've said it before. I don't think anybody's I don't like labels, liberal, moderate, conservative. People about conservative about what they have. Nobody wants to give up what they have. Somebody tells you, give me your stuff, you're gonna go, yeah, not in this lifetime, pal. And you're liberal about what you want. Oh yeah, give me the money. Okay, give me the money. I'll take it. And you're moderate about what you don't give a shit about. Oh, I don't care about that either way. It doesn't make any difference. And most people are that way. And I've always said, listen, I am an ultra conservative on certain issues, like borders. But I am fairly liberal on social programs. Not all of them, but some of them. I believe that people with mental illness, people with drug issues and stuff should be helped. Veterans should be helped. This country should be committing money to helping its own people. So does that make me a liberal? No. It makes me someone who cares about taking care of the people who have issues that they really need attention for. Does it make me a conservative, an ultra-conservative, because I think the United States should not let people invade it? No, I don't think so. All my ancestors came to the United States legally. That's right, everybody is an individual. And every individual has different philosophies. It doesn't make you like that. These labels are bullshit. It's like, yeah, I believe that everybody should come. My grandparents came over, went through Ellis Island on both sides. They were given physicals, they were vetted, they had to have papers, and they came in and they built a life in America. And that's fine. We are a country of immigrants, but not illegal immigrants. Not 55,000 military-age Chinese that haven't been vetted. Not importing 100,000 Palestinians when you know that 90% of them hate America. this is wrong. And we can't allow this to happen, because what they do is they polarize people with these parties. I don't agree with virtually anything in the Democratic Party anymore. They've gone so far left, they're almost right. But I also don't agree. I agree with a lot of the Republican stuff about borders and crime and safety and support of our police. But I don't agree with everything. But that's the whole key. That's why the independent movement, I think this is going to be the catalyst. Just like the purple bags were the catalyst for Flanagan, I think that with the way this country and the city is deteriorating, I really believe that this is going to be the catalyst for people saying, no, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm an individual, and I'm going to vote for the person who is going to do what I believe should be done, and his platform fits my beliefs the best. And I think Robert Kennedy's candidacy, and they're trying to stomp all over him, a lot of people looked at him and said, he's got a lot of good ideas. Probably not going to get in, but I think that you're going to see a movement here. Because what happens to these entrenched politicians, look at Coogan. I want one term, maybe two. Now he wants to be Eddie Lambert. Why? Why shouldn't he? 120 grand a year, live on your pension, put that in the bank, have your friends in the bank invest it for you. You're probably going to be a multimillionaire. You want absolute power. Now he's loving the power. Everybody loves me. Everybody loves me. Well, 14,000 people voted in that election, and that's not everybody in Fall River, and it's the people who didn't vote. You get somebody like this, and now he's getting drunk with power like they all are. Now he wants to keep the power. Just like, remember our boy from the Cape? Our congressman had said, I'm running on term limits, has been there for like 45 years now.
That's right.
Right? So this is what happens to these guys.
Oh, the old saying is right. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
And once they get in, they go, man, is this a good gig?
That's right.
People look at all these people come, they give me everything I want, they'll give me money to do this, and I got some power. So with that, CJ, back to you, because I'll tell you, I think it's time for a revolution.
Well, I mean, look at Mr. Lima's comments. Florida government has failed tremendously. Tyranny is running rampant against the people. I've been saying that for the longest time. We have a dictator, not a mayor. And, when people understand that we can no longer handle what this administration's doing, maybe they'll wake up. And I just got my water bill. And I'm calculating a 24% increase in the water bill for the next fiscal year. And I'll tell you now, I'm not looking forward to it. My water bill for the past quarter was $500. You add 25% to that, and that's another $125 a quarter, which is $600 a year.
Well, to answer Jeff's question, Markey's been in about 40 years at least. That's the guy who ran on term limits. You hit it. That's it. Ed Markey. Yeah, we got to have term limits. He got up to Washington, found out what a great gig that was. Oh, baby. It's like that. What was that song they used to have? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I don't know that. But they find out how good that life is. They don't want to leave it. It's like, look at this. I can do nothing and make mega money. But again, who's it go back to, CJ? It's the fault of the people.
That's right.
People. When we do not participate, remember what Sir Edmund Burke said, who was a member of Parliament in Britain in the 1700s around our revolution. He said, when good men do nothing, tyranny will prevail. That's it. The problem is if the people do not, yeah, you're paying for their raises, you're paying for everything. What you're not paying for is your water.
That's right.
You're paying for everything but your water. And they told you that. If you don't use water, you're still going to pay.
That's right.
And you're going to vote for these people? Come on. God, what's going to build a fire? We're preaching to the choir because the people who watch us actually pay attention. But all these other people, it's like, how can they can't watch a council meeting because they want to go down there and go postal. Because you listen to the guy say, yep, you're right, Michelle. You can save all the water you want, and you're still going to pay more.
That's right.
We don't care. But it's not really a revenue stream. It's not a business. And then they build the Taj Mahal for the water department on your dime.
You know, a comment was made by a city councilor in regards to taking EMS and the water department out of enterprise funds. And I think that might be a good idea. Number one, EMS has a lot of extra money. They're saying, well, we give the city 30% of our revenue stream. So what? The other 70% of that revenue stream can come into the city. They make a lot of money. They make a lot of money. And that money can offset some of the tax raises and some of the water rate increases if they're not part of an enterprise account. And with the enterprise account, the city council have a better control of the water rates because they're part of the general budget instead of having to meet their own needs. It does have some downfall, don't get me wrong. But you can see the validity of such an action. And I know that Cliff Ponte brought it up, and while I'm not agreeing with a lot of what Cliff does or says, I have to agree with that. Maybe we should look at taking away the enterprise accounts and putting them back into the general budget, especially the EMS account.
Well, you're right. Well, number one, EMS should have never been separated. They got huge pay raises, got rank that they didn't take tests for, just bestowed on them, and giant pay raises, and a change in their retirement system because they went in front of the council and said, we are going to create a fire-based EMS. And they never had any intention to be melded in with the fire department. It would have been a lot more cost effective. Now you have an entire department with supervisors and everything else. They've been running fire-based EMS in Providence for 50 years. They're part of the fire department. You don't need a whole bunch of supervisors over there driving around in their new cars supervising EMS because they're run by the fire department. Fire-based EMS is prevalent throughout the United States. It brings in money. But you know why they want this? You're right. They say, we bring in a lot of money, so we're paying our own pay raises, so you can pay us as much as we want because we're making the money. Well, that's not why you run fire-based EMS. You run it as a service to the public, and if you're making money at it, it's a city department, and that should go into the city. I don't agree with the enterprise funds because you're creating a business within the city.
That's right.
And then they consider themselves a separate entity. Oh, we deserve it. Shut up. Don't complain about our pay raises. We pay our raise. No, you work for the city. You want to run a business as an ambulance business, get out. Privatize. You think it's that good? Then you'll have to buy your own buildings. You'll have to do a lot of things. The reality is, this was a con from the get-go. They promised they were going to go into the fire department. And instead, they did the exact opposite. And they're making a lot of money. Yeah, but that money is money the city's making by providing that service. And by the way, They're making a lot of that money because we are providing a service to the public. And it is what, CJ? Emergency medical service,
That's right.
which we are required to do as a city. We have to provide public safety. That service is something we're required to do. This isn't an ambulance service. You don't call the Fall River EMS to get transported up to Boston or to get an ambulance ride somewhere. It's an emergency medical service that all cities provide. Now on the Cape, they're all fire-based now on the Cape.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a Cape Cod city with all their money that has a separate entity for EMS. They all have firefighter paramedics, firefighter EMTs. And I know a lot of those guys that work down there. That whole thing was another Coogan con. That was a Coogan con from the get-go. They flat out lied to the city council. Flat out lied to them. Now they're all walking around, driving around in Dodge Chargers, brand new pickup trucks, and they got a whole bunch of supervisors. Go to Providence. They don't have supervisors. They got an officer on an ambulance. What do they need? An extra billing clerk? I'll tell you. Like you said, they're saying we make a lot of money. You're right. And I agree. That money should be, that's city money. This is a city service. You're making money. You negotiate your contracts, get a fair wage. But the money you're bringing in, it's one of the few things that a city can do to actually generate income. Generate income. And it's a viable thing. You're not raping people like you're doing for water, overcharging them for water. That's something that's our natural resource, and we should be paying just enough to pay for the service. But EMS is providing a really, really important service to the public.
And an expensive one.
And very expensive, exactly. Because, look, nobody wants to see somebody die from a medical emergency. And when a city has the ability to provide that service, and you know how expensive medical care is, well,
Yep.
We're going to get reimbursed. But you can't start treating that like it's anything else. We got an emergency medical service to provide, first of all, that service. Now, if you're making money on the side, that's good, but that's city money. Because if we're fortunate enough to be able to make money off it, that should go into the city budget. Everybody's budget, not theirs. They're not their own business. If they want to be their own business, they can go build a building and be on their own. I'm adamantly opposed to having those things separated. I have always been in favor of fire-based EMS. I've got the book from the International Association of Firefighters in the next room. I can walk into that room where you see the closed door behind me and go and grab the entire manual on how to create fire-based EMS. I tried to create fire-based EMS when we first got EMS.
You were the first ambulance driver.
Well, I wasn't the first ambulance driver, but I was one of the few people when they created when Chief Shea created the EMS. I was one of the few firefighters that was a certified EMT, and I was one of the first people to ride on the ambulance, drive the ambulance, be on the ambulance for a little while, because I was one of the few, and when they got on, they had a mixture of firefighters and civilians on the ambulances. So we used to get, we used to be put on the ambulances because we were certified. I wasn't there long because I made lieutenant shortly thereafter, and then as an officer, I went on a truck again, and I wasn't sent over to the ambulance periodically. But I tried to get fire-based EMS long ago. It's far more efficient. It's less expensive to the city administratively, and it still brings in a ton of money. And that's the reality.
It's always something, but it's an idea. Well, everyone, I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great day.